Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. So excited to have you here. Welcome all my new listeners and welcome back all of my returning listeners. I appreciate you. P.S. I love getting messages from you guys when you find the podcast. You introducing yourself, saying hi, letting me know what episode has helped you or allowed you to see something different, tagging me in your Instagram stories. All of it means a whole bunch. Please keep doing it. Please keep leaving reviews. If you're an Apple listener with the podcast, it helps me. It helps more people find me. And we get to change the world together each time you do that. So I really do appreciate it. All right, you guys, today we are going to dive right in and talk about breaking cycles. Oh my goodness, this is such a big topic, but nonetheless a very important one. And I hope to bring great attention to this because when it comes to a cycle that we are reliving or repeating in our life, it is oftentimes subconscious, totally unconscious, right? I'll kind of use those words interchangeably. But it isn't happening because we are intentional about it. It's happening because of something that we haven't faced or healed or don't even realize is a problem. It just feels like fact. It feels like the news, right? Of this is what I do and how I am and how I behave and the way that I'm raising my kids because this is what my parents did to me. This is what my parents did for me. This is what we did. And so as a return, it's what we're now doing. And without profound awareness, it is very easy to repeat cycles and very hard to break cycles even when they're extremely toxic. So that is something I really want to touch on today. So throughout my childhood, there were a lot of things that occurred that were toxic and certainly not okay. And when I became a teenager, although I knew that a lot of these things were toxic, I had many of the reactions that I saw in childhood ingrained in me without realizing it and would treat people in a way that I wasn't always proud of, but that felt natural because of what I saw growing up. So that could be, I'll give just random examples, not necessarily me, but this could be your tone. Yelling, right? If you grew up in a family that yells and screams, you might say, well, my whole family yells and screams. So I yell and scream when I'm angry. We just yell and scream. That's what we do. And I know I don't like it. And I know I don't want to be this way. And I know I don't want to yell at my kid. But that's what my mom and dad did with me. That's what my gram and grandpa did. And that's what we do. We just yell. Okay. So that's an example. It could be spanking, right? A lot of people have a lot of controversial opinions on spanking. If you spank your kids, it could be that your parents or your grandparents or whoever raised you spanked you, and you feel like it is certainly not a problem because you turned out fine, right? So why even question something if you feel that you've turned out fine? Now, if you're on the opposite end and you're like, it really traumatized me every time I was spanked as a kid, then you may have awareness and enough insight into how you felt in the moment to say, I don't want my kids to feel that same fear, or I don't want them to be afraid of me. I don't want them to, scour down whenever I raise a hand or when I raise my voice. And so that might be a reason why, you change something or break a cycle. So we oftentimes either just continue a cycle because it doesn't feel like it's a problem or we don't recognize that within ourselves, or we do have awareness of how we felt in a moment where we didn't feel good and maybe we experienced negative emotion or shame or embarrassment or whatever the emotion was, and we think moving forward, I don't want my family or the people around me to feel the way that I felt. So same thing with like bullying, right? Like if you were bullied as a kid and it really traumatized you, which oftentimes it does because bullying is not good at all. So if you were bullied as a kid, you oftentimes either grow up and you're very sweet, maybe even the complete opposite end of like you're a people pleaser because you were used to being bullied. So now you're trying to please everybody so you don't ever have to feel bullied again. Or you stand up for yourself, right? You break cycles. You teach everybody after you that it's not okay to bully. You're quick to stand up for people. And then there's the alternative, right? If you bullied as a kid and you were never reprimanded or it was never caught, you might grow up as an adult bullying people because you feel that it's not a problem. So here's the thing, like everybody justifies their behavior in some way, right? We feel validated in who we are and how we behave. And a lot of times if you really listen to people, so if you remember when I said weeks ago, be curious, be in curious energy. If you really listen to why people believe things about themselves or act the way that they do, it often comes from something in their childhood or a way that they were raised or something that they learned in their early years of life. And they justify it by, this is how I was raised. It's just who I am. And we've talked about it on the podcast. I am statements are so powerful and they can always be changed. But a lot of times there's so many ingrained in us, like this is just who I am. And we say it as if it's a fact, as if it is not something that we can change. But at any point, something that we're unhappy with, something that's toxic, something that doesn't feel good, a cycle that you're ready to break is available for you to break. So some of the things that I worked on breaking in my life, and simply because I just wanted things to be different. My mom had me at a very young age. She was 15 when she got pregnant with me, had me at 16. And one of the things I witnessed a lot growing up was a lot of challenges my mom had, and sometimes feeling bad that she didn't get to experience really being a kid, because at 15 you're still a kid. And so even for me as a kid, I made a mental note that I wanted to break the cycle of, also having a teen pregnancy, not because I was ashamed of my mom or, anything like that. It was simply because I wanted something different. And statistically speaking, there are so many statistics where, I should not be who I am today, but I actively made decisions where I wanted to break a lot of cycles. And it takes a lot of conscious effort to do so because the first step is being self-aware. You have to have awareness of what you're doing and who you are in order to say, I don't love this piece of myself and I would like to improve, or I'm not so happy with this way I'm handling, like this way of handling something. I want this to be different. I'm not happy with how I'm showing up in my life or for my kids or for my family. I want this to be different. And I see this a lot in my coaching practice with my clients, is that oftentimes they feel like they've become their parents or they've become someone in their family that they swore they never would. And they often say, like, how did this happen? I don't understand. This is not what I wanted. This is not what I want to show my kids. And the thing that I remind them is it's never too late. It's never too late. When you commit to doing the work and looking at yourself, and you're willing to really become more self-aware and love yourself through any flaws that you feel that you have full potential to change the trajectory of your life and everybody after you. And I'm always thinking ahead, like my behavior, my choices, my willingness to be better doesn't just impact me and my current family that is living and exist. It impacts the children that I don't have yet. It will impact their children and their children's children. And I have the ability to change generational cycles that come after me based on my behavior and who I am as a person and how I choose to show up in the world. So that is always available to you. If there are things that you don't love about the way that you were raised, you can raise your kids to be different. But in order to raise them to be different, you have to be aware of yourself and how you were raised in the first place and what subconscious things would be very easy to continue if you allowed it. That's super important. So we really have the opportunity to make everything better if we want it to, and better, of course, is subjective. That is totally our opinion, right? We get to decide that for ourselves and for our families of how we really want to operate in the world. And this is where highest self work really comes in. Think of who you are as a parent when you're your highest self versus maybe how you're showing up every single day currently. Who are you as your highest self at your job whenever you show up that way versus when you show up in frustration or defeat or misery, right? So really think about that and know that breaking cycles, yes, can be challenging, especially if you're not fully aware of it, but that is always something that we can explore together if you need more help. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. You will be listening to this as I will be wrapping up final visits with my family and flying back to Vegas permanently until my sister has her baby and I'm able to kind of see how things are going and come back and visit her. And that is kind of what inspired even this episode. You know, my sister's becoming a mom, and she'll really get to decide what cycle she wants to break and how she, wants to raise my niece and her child. And it's really exciting. It's something that, she can show up in her power and do, but it would take self-awareness to do that. And I'm excited for when that time comes for me, is to think of the things that aren't always serving me and how I can make that different for, like I said, my babies and then my babies' babies and generations and all of that. So I hope that you have a great day today. I will be back home in Las Vegas very late, but I'm excited. We've got my husband's birthday coming up. And I've had, I'm sure an amazingly great visit with all of my friends and families. I'm sure a difficult goodbye. I will certainly update you guys after all of that has happened because I'm recording ahead of time so that I can be super present with them while I'm there. But I will certainly update you on what life has looked like and how I'm navigating things since our move, especially leaving family, knowing that there's not a set date of when I'm coming back. Hopefully things are great and I can celebrate all of these amazing milestones that have happened in just under a year. So have a great day. I will talk to you later. Go break cycles.